Good afternoon, everybody. It's Sunday, the 26th of October, 2025. It's, what is it? It's 5 minutes after 2 at the moment. And right up there, that's a symbol of the partisans. There's a lot of that, especially on this Prospect Partizansky. That's where, Partizansky Square is down there and all. That's one of the big prospects. Prospect means a big street, of course, and like boulevard or something like that in English. Anyway, so anyhow, what about the news? That's some interesting stuff. It's Sunday, it's kind of slow news, but there's some significant things, somewhat significant. And Donald Trump I guess he's in Asia, doing his deal over there. And as you know, he's probably trying to get a lot of people to do boycotts against Russia, amongst other things, as you know. And because this is a cultural center from Minsk, Autozavodskaya, for the factory that makes trucks and things. I just saw some video earlier this morning, and I guess it was this Richard Wolff. He's an economist, professor. He was talking, and according to him, they're making a lot of missiles and things for war here in Minsk, but I don't see it there. I don't see it. They're still making tractors at the tractor factory and trucks at the truck factory. I'm sure there's some things, probably, maybe commissioned by Russia for electronic experts to be doing things, and who knows what else. I was thinking it'd be a little bit quieter here, but it's not. It's still also noisy because of the traffic. Maybe I can find some place to sit down over there. But as far as like other technologies are concerned, I saw something. Matter of fact, it was also by the same guy. I think his name is Richard Wolff, and he's talking about these trains. And it's they have trains. I've heard that they can maybe go up to 600 kilometers an hour, but I don't know. They were showing a demonstration on there. It was like 450 kilometers an hour, some of the fastest trains on Earth, or they probably are, and that's in China. And China is way ahead of the United States in so many things. And of course, there are things about Russia that are way ahead of the United States. One of them was missile technology. And Russia just put out a new missile. And I guess it's hypersonic. I don't know. I saw something saying how many kilometers per hour it goes. I found a bench. Isn't that incredible? Maybe I can come here sometimes. But I don't know what the speed for kilometers per hour when it becomes hypersonic. I don't know. I didn't even pay attention because I was I don't know anything about Mach this and Mach that. And Donald Trump is even talking about making big battleships again. And he likes like this Iowa. Remember the Iowa had these huge, massive guns, and he wants to do that again. Anyway, you never know. If they ever tried to do that again, of course it would take long after Donald Trump's time before the first one would be finished anyway. They're not China. China can put them out probably within a year or two, make a battleship. And the United States, they can't do anything like they used to do maybe in the older days. So, but anyway, this is called the missile by Russia. It's called Burevstik. And it's, I don't know, I guess it has a nuclear reactor, a little miniature one inside of the missile. And I guess it's got really massive firepower, and it's not even nuclear. But it's very destructive, much more destructive than even the other one they came up with, about a year ago, the Orishnik. And everybody knows that is a massive game changer. I think that's up to, what do they call that? It's not short range, it's middle range. It's not long range, it's middle range. I guess they can hit everywhere in Europe. I don't know if they can get as far as Lisbon, but obviously a lot of these are going to be going, as a matter of fact, they already are going into Belarus. So they are mass producing the Orishnik, and they are very fast. And apparently based on super speed, a lot of time you cannot have a long distance. They don't go, hypersonic missiles normally don't go beyond medium range. But this new one, I don't know, it's probably in the low ranges of hypersonic. Like I said, I'm not a big missile expert, and this just came out. Putin just started talking about it yesterday. I suppose we're going to hear a lot more about it. And it goes into serial production starting in, I guess it's 2027. But they've already made some, and they've fired them off. But like I just said, they're mass producing or serial producing the Orishnik now. But they said, I guess with this one, it's like, I've seen two different descriptions on how far it can fly. I heard some people say 16 hours, and I've heard some people say indefinitely, that it can go for maybe a day. I don't know, 24 hours. Anyway, it's long range. And I guess it is fast, but I don't know how fast. And if it's, well, apparently it's got the different quality. I guess it is very maneuverable. It can make, can go completely around. It can go around the countries. Like if it was like airplanes, you know, and you're not allowed to use somebody's airspace, it can go matter of fact, I think Russia even already has these. And I think even, I think it wasn't it Iran that has that too, they can circumvent certain countries. I'm not even positive about this. But they have some technology, that's some pretty awesome stuff. So fast trains, the fastest trains in the world are in China. Fastest missiles in the world are also in Russia. And China has a lot as well. And the United States, I've been hearing, see, Donald Trump, he wants to put hypersonic missiles on the new battleships. He wants longer range hypersonic missiles on these new battleships that he's envisioning that will be much like the Iowa, with big, massive guns. I don't know. Everything is just in his head right now, so it's not even on paper. So let's see. In spite of what we're seeing in Gaza, Ukraine, and Venezuela, and all this earth-shattering violence, you have to not forget. You know, I mean, if you like action movies or something like that, we look at this violence or something, and some movies are just, you know, I mean, let me just mention that I saw this one. What's this, Jason Momoa or something? Apparently he plays Conan, and it was like, gosh, I didn't even want to watch it. It's just really brutal. But you know, you don't see a bunch of blood, you know, when you're in the old days, I guess, when you had these real battles with people with swords and things, and on the battlefield you're just covered in blood, and you can't even tell who the next person is next to you if it was your best friend, because you're just drenched in blood. But so many of these movies, you know, you see like little spots flying in the air, but nobody has any blood. Must be something to do with some laws in Hollywood. But anyhow, besides, I wasn't going to talk about movies, but besides all this violence, you know, there's a big element of a lot of corruption, and you know, I talk about that a lot, and a lot of other people do. Like, I think, like Jimmy Dore talks a lot about a lot of this mass corruption and things. Some people, they just kind of skim over it and don't really talk about it because it's so terrible, you know, with child trafficking and drug trafficking and any of these depressing things like that. But there is Candace Owens, you know, and she's talking a lot about the Charlie Kirk thing, and apparently there's a lot of people that were either complicit or, and I don't know exactly. Candace Owens is not really coming out completely. She can't really say whatever she believes, because then she'll be attacked. She's already attacked. So, but she says a lot of people turned on him, and a lot of people, even all of his friends and things, TP USA, Turning Point USA, people were complicit. And it may not be all of his friends, and not all of his friends, but a lot of them, you know, as you know, these donors, a lot of these big money donors, they definitely turned on him. And I can say that Israel definitely turned on him. They would look at him and say he was turning on them. But I'm not saying that Israel necessarily did the assassination. But hey, I'm not a big shot. I will say, in my opinion, Israel was definitely involved. They're definitely involved with that. And I'm not saying just because this guy George Zinn that immediately said, I did it, and this looks, I don't know if he's about my age or whatever like that, and they were arresting him, and I don't know if they put handcuffs, but I guess he was a diversion. So he's involved in it, apparently, just like he was. The same guy had something to do, because he was calling all of this stuff about what's going to be going on in that, remember that Boston Marathon bombing. So the same guy, George Zinn. Weird that he would turn up in both places, on opposite ends of the United States. So, but like a lot of this corruption, Charlie Kirk, Israel is somehow involved in that, or related at the very least, and drugs, oil might be related to Venezuela and Colombia even. Yes, Donald Trump put some sanctions on Colombia. It isn't related, but it's not related apparently in the way you think it is. It's not like these presidents or these leaders are actually in that, even though Donald Trump likes to call them drug dealers or something. Just because I think some drugs come from the country. I've already mentioned things in other videos. Hey, the country I was in, they grew marijuana, and the people that were guarding the fields had machine guns. The police didn't even dare go up there, and the United States used to come, like I said, in every November with incendiary helicopters and burn them. But it wasn't because of the war on drugs. It was actually the war for drugs. And for a long period of time, of course, that was because the marijuana from St. Vincent and the Grenadines was such quality that it competed with the United States marijuana that they were growing in Central America. And as I was saying already before, United States wanted to sell their marijuana maybe for a high price, or I don't know if it was price-wise, why the United States was destroying it, either for price or for quantity, or definitely quality, why they were destroying that marijuana. And of course, the United States, just like in Afghanistan, is like I mentioned, I think it was the last video, they were involved in the opium stuff, and they'd love to try to shovel it as much as they could. Russia was really, what's the word, catching hell, I guess, trying to get rid of all of this opium that was coming into Russia, sent obviously by the United States, because the United States was the one running that whole operation there. And of course, this war on drugs. If you saw that movie with Tom Cruise, I guess it's called American Made. I've mentioned it before. You watch that one, and that just tells you a lot. You learn a lot from right there. That's it. And it's probably still going on today. And I've met people, and there's some other stories. I don't want to even say anything about it. But anyway, so Jimmy Dore was bringing up a lot of ignored facts, not about the drug trade necessarily, but it's he mentioned that Candace Owens believes Charlie Kirk was betrayed by everyone, like I just said, and including Trump. And I'm not saying that Trump had anything to do, and I don't think Candace is implicating that Donald Trump had something to do with the assassination, but maybe the cover-up afterwards, and saying, "Oh, let's move on now. It's over with." I think that's what she was mostly implying. And everybody knows that Charlie Kirk was refusing to continue being a tool for Israel, and he's even told them they should be doing their own promotion. He's tired of it, and probably a lot of people. He's probably getting ticked off. So many people questioned about all the genocide of them killing the Palestinians. And I think I was going to put out at the end of this video, but I'll put it out now. But apparently what's going on right now, and this is also related to Venezuela and Israel. Very strange stuff, strange world, but it's just mildly. So apparently it's come out that Israel is waiting for the United States to begin their operation against Venezuela, to start the bombing. and who knows what, whatever the overthrow, all that sort of thing. And they're going to use that as a diversion to again start to escalate what's going on. What right now is just a short pause in Gaza and around that area. Of course, Israel continues to bomb Lebanon a lot, and they're still bombing. They're still bombing Gaza. That's make no doubt about that. And they're still blocking most all the aid trucks coming in. It's still far, far less than what's supposed to be coming in, and there still is starvation and malnutrition because they're blocking the food still to come in. And of course, what else they're also letting do? They're letting the settlers, irregular Israelis block it. I think I told you about this one. There's like 10 trucks, and there's some guy just going back and forth with his, baby carriage or something. Just one guy, and the trucks can't move. And like I said, you can't touch an Israeli. You can't do anything to Israeli, or else you go to prison. Now, you can kill Palestinians and you don't go to prison, but you can't even put your hand on an Israeli, and you will go to prison. That's, I guess, how the laws work out there. Maybe it's just for Palestinians. I believe it's for everybody in there. I don't know. And who knows? Maybe you actually get to go to trial, and maybe they'll let you go if you're not Palestinian. But anyhow, that's how it goes. So President Petro of Colombia, he's refusing to be a U.S. CIA puppet. Essentially, that has very much to do with why they are going against him right now. And of course, they wanted him to be obviously complicit. Colombia is right next door to Venezuela, and very easy to launch attacks from Colombia. And I don't think he wants to do that. And obviously, that's one reason why Trump started coming out and calling him a drug dealer, a big boss drug dealer. Donald Trump, I tell you, like I said, there's good things about Trump, but and if he talks to people and acts like they're mafia, I think Donald Trump should look in the mirror. Who acts more like a big mafia boss? It's sad. It's sad, I would actually like Donald Trump, but I try to find some of the good things about him and things, and he does some good things in the United States. It's just like these drug dealers, oh yeah, they're doing a lot of things for the communities, when they're far away from Bogota and all that, but they're still drug dealers, and it's complicated, I guess I would say. So, but the big corruption that was announced by Jimmy Dore, that which is actually a gift of 40 billion, which actually is 60 billion. It sounded like it was 20 billion, and then it was up to 40 billion. And apparently with the IMF loan to Argentina, it is 60 billion. 60 billion in Argentina will not ever be able, they will not pay it back. It's not going to be paid back. But when you consider that Israel gets every year at least 4 billion free of charge, and it's very well understood they never have to pay that money back. That's at least 4 billion. In 2024, it was over 10 billion that Israel got. And there's even more. There's lots of other perks, and there's lots of donors and things besides all that. I'm just talking about the official money that comes from the American taxpayer. But there's a lot of other money going to Israel, lots of it. Other tens of millions. It makes you really wonder, if you cut all this aid off, Israel would probably not exist. It'd probably be gone in a couple of weeks. And of course, they would have to be making friends with their neighbors instead of bombing them, if the United States wasn't propping them up in that way militarily. But like I said, one was an IMF loan, 40 billion coming directly from the U.S. taxpayers. And Argentina already has a huge debt. How many times has Argentina failed? Makes you wonder what is going on down there. So they got big debt already. And I just, out of the top of my head, I should have looked it up, but I know that they have a lot of beef that's famous for beef. You have Argentinian restaurants, even in Minsk. They have them all over the place. I think they go around and they put the beef on your table. I don't know, it's like smorgasbord. I don't know, I've been to I think, a restaurant a long time ago, probably 20 years ago, Argentina. But they also apparently have soybean, and the Chinese stopped buying soybean, because of this trade war. They stopped buying this from California, and so they're buying it from Argentina. But I don't know if that was originally part of the reason why Donald Trump was given that $40 billion, if it has anything to do with the soybean. I don't know if it has anything to do with this beef. As you know, Bill Gates loves beef. He loves beef. And what about climate change? A lot of people want to kill off all the cows, except, of course, for Bill Gates's cows. He's not going to eat the fake meat that he's working on. So I don't know if that has much to do with that as well. But Milei, Donald Trump says he loves this Milei. I've been talking about him quite often. He's got the sideburns like Pushkin. If you know that song. Probably don't know that song. I'm sure they have other agricultural products. I don't know. Doesn't Argentina also have wine? I know Chile has wine. And I believe Simon Black, well, his name isn't Simon Black, but he was going by the name Simon Black, Sovereign Man. And I believe he grows blueberries in Chile. But I don't know. I'm sure Argentina, they have more than just, I think some Nazis went down there, right? Maybe that's why Donald Trump, maybe that's where he's going to go afterwards. But I'm sure some of this has to do with China, but how much? Definitely has to do with China. And Donald Trump is going to, I don't know when he meets Xi Jinping. Is it tomorrow or whatever? And he's going to be trying to force him to buy soybeans from California again and not from Argentina. But anyway, some reporter asked Donald Trump, well, why? And he said, oh, well, they're hurting down there in Argentina. They're hurting, whatever. And I was wondering, well, so are the people in Gaza. Are you sending so much money to Gaza? What about the people in Serbia? Serbia, they're hurting big time too. They're going to be hurting in Hungary and Slovakia as this oil gets cut off. And it has been getting cut off with all the bombings of all the pipelines by the CIA, the MI6, and Ukraine, in conjunction with Ukraine. So I don't know. So those people are hurting. But I guess the Argentina's hurting is more important. So Trump's Treasury Secretary, I guess he's the one that, I guess he's really involved in a lot of this, and this is big corruption. This has a lot to do with corruption. But this Besant, I didn't even know this, but he was a big guy under Soros, George Soros, and of course some Soros people, billionaires, are also involved in this big deal that's going on, of basically stealing American taxpayers' money. But the American taxpayers, they give freely. It's just like this guy yesterday from France saying that, what is it, but he's involved in the defense sector of something of France, and he's basically volunteering the French people to die for Ukraine. They are ready to make the sacrifice, said something like that. A lot of people got pissed off, the opposition parties and all that in France, obviously. But Besant, he was really big with George Soros. And so there's hedge funds involved in this stuff. That means going to be some... And I should also add that with all this money, even the announcement of this, and all the money that has already been sinking in, the peso is also sinking. The Argentinian peso is also still going down in spite of all of this stuff. So it's not really helping at all. It's just like sanctions on Russia. It didn't really hurt Russia. It hurt the West themselves. Just like this money, $40 billion from the American taxpayer. I think the American people are going to be feeling it more than the Argentinian people are going to be benefiting from it. A lot of corruption. Probably going to Zelensky in some way or shape or form, as most of the money goes. Zelensky's like a magnet with money, I think. Donald Trump probably said something like that. So the U.S. gets nothing but losses. There's nothing really going to the U.S., I guess. Nothing whatsoever. I can't see. There must be some kind of a dealing. But it wasn't mentioned. So, but anyhow, what this actually shows, Trump is at the, and George Soros had said he's going to ruin Donald Trump. But this move, it proves that Donald Trump is definitely, undeniably aligned with some of Soros' associates, other buddies with big billionaire hedge funds and things like that. It's amazing. It makes you wonder if Donald Trump is, if it was, but Donald Trump has changed. Definitely, he had a lot different policies when he was running. And as a matter of fact, even immediately after he got into office, and then everything changed. Not just the Epstein files stuff, not just things about Russia, maybe about Ukraine. You just saw him do a major flip-flop on Ukraine. Apparently, but Donald Trump, he starts in one place, and he flips to the opposite, and then he flips back to that, and then he flips again. Like, that's what he was doing with, what is this, about a ceasefire? First he was, was he against the ceasefire, then he was for it, and then he's against it, and now he's for it again. To put pressure on Russia. Obviously, Russia's not going to play for that. Everybody is saying that. Even Vladimir Putin said, I guess, it's, I've been saying that. I don't know the exact words. There's some, but Putin has said just basically he's not going to play it at all. Anyhow, and let's go further. What's going on about this? Yeah, it's exact words, I think. What was it? He said Argentina is fighting for its life. That's why he has to give this 60 billion, which is outright 40 billion direct from the American taxpayer, but the other 20 also will come from the American taxpayer. So the 60 billion, and they've already gotten huge billions, and that's wow. That's you got to imagine how much money that really is. How much money that is. Some really dirty stuff going on. Yeah, but anyway, so he's ignoring Hungary and Slovakia, Serbia, as I said, and all these big oil sanctions are going to hurt Hungary. They're going to hurt Serbia, like I said yesterday, even more. And Serbia is fighting for its life. It really is, to be honest with you. And anyway, it's all kinds of people there trying to overthrow Serbia. I've mentioned that already many times. I mean, I've been over many months. This has been going on for quite some time. So the deputy foreign minister of Iran, Saeed Khatibzadeh, he said, was it yesterday or maybe the day before, that, let's say a few days ago, I don't know, that Trump talks about peace. And he says now Iran knows that he wants hegemony. So Iran, I guess, because as you remember, Donald Trump was talking peace with Iran, and then he turned around during the peace talks, he started bombing them, destroying all of their everything. Donald Trump has got this strange, I don't know if you call it compartmentalizing things. So he's got like a, what do they call that? That operation when you split the callus corpus, the two hemispheres of your brain, and you can. It's like you have two brains, and it really is, I guess. And there's certain things you can't do anymore. It's like if you cover, I don't know, very strange. Corpus callosum, I guess, is what you know. So he's got it. So he's. It's like his left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. That's very similar to what happens when you do this. They used to do these operations and. To stop the epilepsy, which is like the nerves going back and forth and really very quickly, and that's what causes the seizures apparently in epilepsy. So I guess you can stop the seizures, but there's a lot of other bad things when you sever the corpus callosum. I mean, that's just something, I don't even know where I learned that anymore, but so Trump is meeting all these Asian leaders, and they're all rushing up to, bend over, pull down your trousers. Like at least everybody wants Donald Trump to think that Donald Trump loves it. He eats it up, and it's like, wow. I don't think Xi Jinping is going to do that. I guess China doesn't play that game, especially when you're a big country like that. Lula was not really so kissing Donald Trump's ass at all, at least what I saw of it. And Putin is very friendly to it, but he's very friendly to a lot of people and a lot of nations and things. That's how Putin actually is. And but he doesn't really kiss Donald Trump's ass, not really in that way. Even though it, you know, he gets close, but it's probably, all these countries are probably doing that because they know it works with Trump. Flattery will get you everywhere. So, and they were supposed to be doing there was some reporter that asked Donald Trump, are you going to be talking about Bolsonaro? And Donald Trump says, none of your business. Really hard. You know, Donald Trump, you know, Bolsonaro was a big supporter of him. He's probably an agent of the United States. I didn't know that because I wasn't against Bolsonaro, you know. But I don't know. Apparently he wanted to overthrow, I don't know what he was doing. I can't remember. I'm not in Brazil. I have nothing to do with them. But anyway, apparently he's in jail. But there's a lot of people in jail, and Donald Trump doesn't even lift a finger to get them. I mean, a lot of former leaders and things. Yes. So anyway, but I was talking also about, this is something I'm curious about, and you guys know I was in coffee, and Ben, don't remind me. I know I don't do my video that I want to do. It has to do with putting photos up and stuff. I can't just sit there and talk about coffee so much and not show you guys a lot of photos. And maybe it's just too much work. I have to kind of learn how to do the programs and things before I can actually make a video, like even a simple one, the way I want to make it. But anyway, I was wondering, now that you had this trouble a little bit, you know, with Lula in Brazil. They have the most coffee in the world. They're the biggest producer by far. They're some of the biggest consumers too, by the way. But they put out a huge amount, far more than any country on earth. I don't know, I would even guess, this is just a guess, I would even imagine that Brazil might put out 30 to 40% of the world's coffee alone, just one country like that. And the United States, as you all know. But anyway, it's the one I like, which is trying to think of the variety, the Arabica variety of that. But it comes out of, they call it Cerrado, Brazil. And I don't think it's Catamor. I think Catamor was a different subspecies varieties. I think there's like 66 varieties of Arabica, and I think it also starts with a C. It's not that's why I mix it up with Catamor. But anyway, Cerrado, Brazil, it's kind of a smaller bean, but and a lot of people say, oh, the bigger beans are the better quality, you get the better price for bigger bean, you know, coffee with larger beans and things like that. But that's not necessarily true. Brazilian coffee, it should be much less expensive because they put out such a huge volume, and it is a very high quality. It's very clean quality. It's very uniformly processed. And Colombia coffee, you know, it's not like it's bad. It's like maybe a lot of but you know, you might have some not haciendas, but these estates within, you know, a lot of this has to do with how these estates process their coffee. Not as much growing, but it's the processing of the coffee. And you know, it's a lot of chemicals used in Colombia, so you know, you're getting that coffee, a lot of chemicals were sprayed on it. And for the most part, a lot of this is not Typica, and Typica is a very high quality. There is this Esmeralda, which is from, generally mostly grown in Panama, but it comes from Ethiopia. It's called, it's from Gesha, Gesha, not Geisha, Gesha, Gesha area in Ethiopia, and they brought it to Panama, and it's, and it doesn't produce that much, but a lot of time it's really very high quality, and it has mostly you know, when you get it for these huge prices, like $70 for 1 pound of unroasted coffee beans. And you know, I guess you can sometimes get them at Starbucks, I don't know, this Gesha, and I think it's like $7 for 1 cup. I mean, it was years ago. I'm talking about 10 years ago. I don't know what it costs now, but that's not even. And then they have a Hacienda La Esmeralda decaffeinated. And I'm not saying it's that same type. And I think those beans are actually smaller as well. But it's a very high quality. some of the most expensive coffee, except for that one where they have this civets, this little animal like a cat, and it, you know, and most people say that's not that great coffee anyway. But anyway, it's this, in Colombia, the variety that they're most well known for is called Supremo Colombian. And like I said, it's not that it's so great, but a lot of Americans are involved in growing it there, so that's why it's pushed and has a lot of PR or whatever. What do they call that? Anyway, it gets a lot of publicity in the United States. And even though there's some in Panama that are much higher quality, like I just said, but there is definitely some good ones in Colombia. But you'll pay more for that. And I'm thinking of some of these other types, what I was going to be talking about. I personally, I like, there was one, and you get it in the early season. When you get it in the early season from Guatemala, it was really really good coffee. It was some of the best for the price that I could imagine. But anyway, the price for Brazilian should be cheaper, and a lot of times if they're charging you a lot for Brazilian, I'm not saying it isn't worth it. It is very high quality, but normally it's the best quality for the price is Brazilian coffee. Normally. I'm just saying. And okay, my question, or the thing I was talking about is, when you're having these problems with Colombia now, big problems with the United States and Colombia, where the United States gets a lot of their coffee, and Brazil, where a lot of coffee, definitely there's blends in there, and then there is another coffee, and I'm thinking that it's going to probably, if there's any problems, you guys can maybe even look into this, but Germany, they grow a lot of their coffee. I'm not saying all of it, but a lot of it comes from Mexico, sort of towards the south, Chiapas, and that's what the coffee is called too, Chiapas. It's Chiapas, Mexico, and that is also quite good coffee. It's not as clean. Brazilian is much cleaner. It's similar to Brazilian. It has a similar taste to that, and I think the crema is very good. So, like Brazilian has some of the best crema, but Brazilian, how they do theirs, they process it much differently. They pick the coffee, and they most everybody, they it's not hulling, it's I'm even forgetting my words here. Anyway, they take the cherry off of it, pulp it. They pulp the coffee, and then they immediately put it out and sun dry it normally, and that makes the coffee a lot more sweeter. And most people, what they do, if you have good quality coffee also, is you pulp the coffee and then you ferment it. I was fermenting my coffee, so I put it in water, and I can judge by hand. So you go by hand and you feel the beans and the grittiness, and then you say, well, okay, this is ready to be set out to dry, and I sun-dried my coffee to make it sure it's better quality. So I was trying to see, these are like secrets. I'm telling you guys all the secrets on how to do great coffee. So you sun dry it. I put it on raised beds, so I had the air coming up from the bottom and the sun coming up from the top. And it's terrible when you have too many days of rain in the tropics. I'm trying to put it inside, but it's very strange. I put it inside, and I started getting mold growing on this stuff, and it didn't actually affect the flavor. It was still very good coffee. So I learned that myself. I was really worried, but it didn't affect it so much. But anyhow, so I'm telling you guys where good coffee, and I mean, you guys are just getting a tremendous lesson here on how to do coffee. So, but no, Chiapas, it was dirt. It's not clean. They like sometimes some sticks in it and things like that. But the taste was good. But you can get a lot of. But there's wet processing and dry processing, and I'm imagining they're doing wet processing. Wet processing is a better quality, and like different ways to process of the coffee. I was just explaining you the best ways. But dry processing is normally not so great, and they do that even in all those countries in Central America and in Africa too. So I don't know. Maybe there's a. See, like I was telling you, Brazil, they have a combination. They do combine two processing methods, and it comes out to be a very good coffee. But I don't know if there's one with dry processing. Anyhow, Sumatra. Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll tell you guys the rest. I'll tell you another method, and what they're doing is, in the old days, when there was coffee, when it was first kind of discovered in Central America, and what they would do, they put it on a ship, on a wooden ships, because the ships were wood back in those days, and it would be sent across the Atlantic to Europe and all, and it imparted a particular flavor when it's even partially drying within these ships. When it got, it's mostly all dried, but then, maybe a little bit. But anyway, with the ocean spray, it's a little bit in the air and all that sort of thing. It had a particular flavor when it got to Europe, for King Louis, I think was it the 17th. It was in the year like 1725 by that time, when it was going to France, and the Dutch were into it a little bit earlier, but at that time. And then but in Sumatra, I guess, and some of those back in maybe the Indonesia and all that, they try to replicate that. So what they do is they hang it in bags, your regular burlap bags, I believe. They hang it within the, bunch of it in the bags, and then they spray it. And I've heard, and I'm not sure if it was there, but I've heard it someplace, spraying it with salt water, believe it or not, and then they let it dry like that. And then I've talked to distributors in the United States, and they because they didn't know this, what I just told you. So, and they were saying, hey, we get this coffee sometimes, sometimes it was wet. It was even wet when we got it. So that's and I knew exactly where it came from. So, I don't know. When you study this stuff, I don't know. I might not be good at tech, doing these videos and things like that, but I was pretty up on coffee, so. That's one reason why I was thinking I should send this to the people here, and I'd love to go back to Africa for this government and start, because they're really into agriculture here. They got a lot of greenhouses. At some point in time, and there was somebody put out a video about this, and it's about Belarus, and they're doing a lot of agriculture with lots of greenhouses, and they are expanding, and they really need people. And I'll tell you what, another thing that this will surprise you is you get paid as an agricultural worker, but in Belarus, like working for these things in the government, you get more than a doctor, you get more than engineers and things, just being a friggin' regular agricultural worker. The problem is you have to speak decent Russian. They wouldn't take me because they said you get these directions and you got to work hard. But I've seen engineers, they get paid half as much as an agricultural worker. You can't even believe it. You get really good money, but they put a lot. In Belarus, if you're a welder or even agricultural worker, because you're working hard, if you're some kind of a specialist, maybe even heavy equipment operators, just like I think probably in the U.S., you get paid very well. So and that's very well for Belarus. I don't know, compared to the United States. Here I got off on a big tangent, and I'm 45 minutes into my video, so let me get back to where I was going, talking about this coffee. But I'm just asking, I'm wondering, you guys, if you see prices going up high in the United States yet right now with coffee. It's definitely gone up somewhat here in the past 6 or 7 months or so. Maybe I think maybe I gotta buy a lot of coffee. And they do produce coffee in India as well, so So as a matter of fact, on the very tip of China, the very, very tiny tip at the very end, I think they're even starting to grow coffee, but you can't do it. There's not enough of the climate there. And they even, this is going to shock you, they grow it in Myanmar, and they even have frost in the winter time, and they cover up the trees and things, but it's very precarious. Anyway, it's just interesting stuff. If you guys are into coffee, like Ben out there, I know you are, so. So, okay, Reuters, they say that Trump is considering more sanctions on Russia. There's Reuters. Remember when you used to trust Reuters? You can't trust them now. They're just like a fake news agency, just like all the rest of them. So, some guy looking at me there. And so let's see. Oh, but the sanctions that you heard about that Trump is putting on, but it also includes some banks. Remember, they had sanctions on banks. Trust me, I know, even on Belarus banks. We all know here. And then they were easing them for some banks, and I don't know apparently whether they're putting them back on. With Donald Trump as president, you see how he's doing things, flip-flopping back and forth on absolutely everything. I don't know. And a lot of people are saying that now that a lot of these countries, they're not, they know you can't rely on Donald Trump, you can't trust him. And what did I said 3 or 4 videos ago? He's indecisive. He doesn't know what he wants to do. That's the deal about Donald Trump. And he says, well, I'll try this, He's messing with markets in the United States and everywhere. Well, I'll try this, I guess that is kind of like an attitude, not of a king, but of an emperor. Okay. And Donald Trump, what did he put out? Actually, I'm getting towards, don't want to let my hat blow away. Gust of wind. So I finished things about commodities. And I should add one thing. You're talking about all this oil and Donald Trump sanctioning oil and doing all this stuff, and it's about Russian oil, trying to block it and all that. But I believe the second most traded commodity on earth is coffee. That's why I'm asking you guys about coffee. So, okay, and I told you about the Reuters and the banks. And what is it? The European Union, they put these sanctions on toilets and bicycles and tricycles and even puzzles. Buy a puzzle in a box. There's even sanctions. Russian puzzles? I don't know. It's really weird stuff. Somebody said it was kind of like they're doing that as a joke, but I doubt it. So Trump, I guess he put out that China. I was talking to you guys yesterday about India, and it looks like I was saying India, and I have not seen anybody else putting that out, that India is going to be replacing what Donald Trump says, completely replacing their oil. He didn't say Saudi Arabia, but I had already seen somewhere else. So I'm not saying that India, if Donald Trump, if that is true, that they're going to completely dump Russian oil and maybe LNG, which I doubt, that they're going to actually be replacing it with oil from Saudi Arabia, but I don't know about all of it. I doubt it. I doubt that very much. Donald Trump says they're going to. Why would Modi do that? What has Russia ever done to him except for be honest? I don't think so. This is going to remain to be seen. Are they going to dump India? Is India going to dump 100% of all the Russian oil, not buy any Russian oil anymore at all from Russia? I don't think so. And Donald Trump also said he hasn't even friggin' been to China yet, but maybe, like Donald Trump, he wants to hear about these things. That's what he put out about this meeting in Budapest. He wants to hear about, the agreement. And that's actually what Russia does. The agreements have to already be agreed upon and practically already signed before you go and have these talks. And now Donald Trump is acting like that's his idea, but that's what Russia says. You have to have, and that a meeting in Alaska, that had nothing to do with that. That was nothing to do with any agreements, and anyway, that's how that was going. But Donald Trump says that, and his word is, let's see, I was saying that they will considerably cut Russia, but he said substantially cut back. That China is going to substantially cut back on using Russian oil and gas. I guess also from Saudi Arabia, maybe. I don't know. That sounds like some weird crap anyway. Okay, there's videos going about, and it was the lawyer of Gustavo Petro. He is the president of Colombia, and the lawyer's name is Dan Kovalik. Kovalik. He sounds American to me. He doesn't sound Spanish at all. And his English was perfect because it was a video that I saw. And he was repeating what I was saying yesterday, what I put out. And I don't know, nobody else has been saying this either. I mean, there should be a lot of people, and maybe people will be putting it out tomorrow. I've noticed sometimes when I actually feel very lucky, and you guys should be feeling even luckier. A lot of times, some of the stuff I'm finding this information, I put it out, and a lot of people don't put it out like for at least 1 day or 2 days. Emil Kosman, damn him anyway. He puts things out really fast too, like I do. And I think sometimes, Alex Cristoforo on his Walk of Bounce, he puts things out pretty fast. But a lot of other people, and I've been seeing these videos sometimes, and it's like and and it was just put up like 24 minutes ago, and I'm looking at this. I said that's over a week old, And it's like, I don't know why, or I saw that video already, or what. I don't know. And there's some people putting up these videos that you just can't believe. What the heck? That's really old information, and it fools me. And a lot of people put up, I guess who is this, Mario Newfall or something like that. He puts up sometimes these fake titles that really pisses me off. And you watch the video, and has nothing to do with what's in the video. Is what the title is. And you're just sitting there wasting all your time. I got better things to do. I'm looking up all kinds of other news, and I can't be looking at fake news. Fake news put out by truth activists that put videos. That's not good at all. But anyway, this Dan Kovalik, that's I guess how it's said, ends with a K. He was repeating that, what I was saying, that the Colombian president, he actually fights drug cartels. More probably the dealers, the secondary people. The cartels are very difficult to go after. They're very powerful, but I guess he actually does fight them. And a lot of these people have a big deficit of drugs. The ones that are the drugs that normally were coming from Colombia, they're sitting in Florida, and they're very angry because they're not getting their product so much, because this guy is blocking a lot of it. A lot of these drugs that came from Colombia. And then Donald Trump, nasty old, should I call him a bastard? He gets up there and he says that this guy is a big drug cartel leader, the president, when he's actually fighting the drugs. He's blocking the drugs. So he's stopping the drugs. And I told you yesterday, and there's one reason for that, because maybe a lot of these people that are influencing Donald Trump, I don't think Donald Trump is involved in this, but these are the people that are making the money on the drugs, the cocaine and stuff that is coming to the United States. And it's, as a matter of fact, I'm not saying that but it's definitely, there are people that's what this guy was saying. So what this lawyer was saying is that he has known this president for like decades, for like 20 years. And he's the lawyer of this president, and I guess he's an American lawyer. And it sounds like he stands firmly behind him. He's not a drug cartel leader or nothing. And he said that he fights drug dealers, and he just said in Colombia, but it's giving them a deficit in the United States, the people that are supposed to be receiving this stuff. And he said the United States, he said it right there. He said the United States is allied with the drug cartels. Definitely. This is incredible stuff. I mean, dare I say this on this video? So the United States, people in the government, and it's very much like Ben Swan was talking about. They worked with the cartels. They're the ones, what is it, Fast and Furious? They're getting the guns down to the drug cartels in Mexico to get the drugs to come up into the United States. And there's people in the U.S. and in the government. And a lot of people know this. A lot of people are paid off, but there's a lot of them making a lot of money doing this stuff. I think I've even met some. Like I said, that's what I didn't want to talk about. Maybe there's a guy that I don't think he's going to live much longer, a big billionaire, and when he dies, maybe because I've met him and had a lot of times, and maybe then I'll put this out when he's gone. So say no more. And I think he's very old, and I don't know, he doesn't look that healthy when I saw him. I saw pictures of him. But anyway, let me keep going. But they're allied with them. And this lawyer was saying the United States allied themselves with these drug cartels and to fight against governments and things like that in South America to further their geopolitical goals. And I've heard a lot, like I said, when I was in the Caribbean, I heard a lot about a lot of this stuff. And some stuff was even going on in the country that I was in. It only was very small when I was there. And like I said, I told you about the United States coming there in November with incendiary, devices hooked on helicopters, and they would burn the marijuana fields. But that's when the United States was in marijuana, and then they graduated up into cocaine, and that's why we're talking about it. It's coming from Colombia and stuff like that. So And I said, like, I mentioned that in the video. I'll just repeat it again, just for you guys to know. It was in the Oliver North, remember all that stuff? This guns for hostages and all this, and Donald Trump, not Donald Trump, Reagan, and then, you know, guns to get the hostages out. But a lot of this stuff was coming out, and it turns out one thing that was put out in a lot of these trials and all that back then is that the United States was using taxpayer money to overthrow governments. You know, like Mossadegh and Guatemala right after that, and all this, and putting their puppet leaders in there. So that was taxpayer monies, and they still wanted to keep doing it. The CIA and all of these agencies. So they went into the drug business. So they started cultivating and getting this stuff, and so they were selling the CIA. That's the same stuff that was going on over there in Afghanistan in order to continue their black ops. Ooh, that's racist. Anyway, that's what that's all about. Okay, let's see. Oh, and Angie, Angel, whatever, she made a comment, and there's another, she put a comment on, I think, the last video I put out, and she mentions, oh, I forgot the name of this stuff, but there's another site, and they might get more views than I did. Maybe that's one reason why YouTube has taken away a lot of my views. And YouTube really fights against these people, and they don't get that many views either. Colonel something, but you have to look in the comments. Her name is Angie Angel, I believe. Real pretty looking lady in there in her picture. And so she will list the site there, and they even make it very difficult to find that on YouTube. So you have to be a little bit, you know, patient and look down and spin right down. Even when you put the exact name in, they don't show it to you. So they're blocking them on YouTube, blocking people from getting that information. That's probably why they take the views from me too. That's how that works out. So anyhow, other news. It's raining. My ink is going to be running. It's jelly. Russia has over 10,000. It's estimated at 10,500 Ukrainian servicemen completely encircled in two places, Pokrovsk and Kupiansk, and I think 5,000 in Kupiansk and 5,500 in Pokrovsk, and they're completely encircled and cut off, and Russia is trying to get them to surrender and to not get killed, because the Ukrainians will kill them with drone strikes and everything if they surrender. They want them to fight to the death. And Russia is trying to save these people and not kill them. Russia sees these as their own people. And a lot of these people, even the Ukrainians, they call themselves Russians, like I've been saying already too. And a lot of them even call themselves Russians that are in Ukraine, the Ukrainian people. So anyway, Russia's trying to save these people and not kill them. And if they surrender, Ukraine will kill them. They'll kill their own people. And Putin was putting out a message that they have to be all treated very well and humanely, and there's so many people, so many of these servicemen that did surrender, that did get under Russian control, and they got food, which they weren't getting, and they got safety and everything from Russia. So they're doing a very good job on that, Russia, in case you didn't know that. Okay, I think that's about all I have. Anyway, I said the aid trucks are still being blocked and all that sort of stuff. That was something I was going to put out. But anyway, it's raining and I don't want my phone to get damaged either. And I thank everybody for joining me, and I hope I gave you guys some very good information. And whenever the next one is, it takes me so much time to go through all this information and learn all this stuff. Start very early in the morning. But anyway, thanks everybody. Thanks to everybody for joining me, and I will see you on the next one. So bye-bye.